Welcome to Whoop with Jen, and welcome to the pod. If you have been listening to my podcasts in the order that they've been released, you will see that I zig and zag all over our story. As someone with ADD, it's just so hard for me to hear a long journey or story from end to end. I like the flashes to other parts of the story. If I'm not entertained, my mind strays. I used to love to read a certain magazine, and the articles were so freaking long, I would get irritated because I didn't understand how a publication that wasn't a book couldn't just get right to the point. If you ever sent me an email that I couldn't read in its entirety in the preview panel, well then, your email immediately was relegated to the bottom of my priority list. I guess you could say that's why I'm not an overall patient person. And I know the yoga community is gasping at me right now. No, I don't fit that mold. I don't fit any mold. As a kid, I was super awkward, immature. I blurted out stupid nonsense and was totally and completely insecure. I never really felt like I hit my stride until my late 30s and 40s. I guess that coincides with most people at that age who stop giving a fuck. And of course, I realized that despite having a special needs kid, which defined me in a huge and profound way for a very long time, it wasn't what really defined me. I was still a mom. I was still a working professional, still a wife, still a friend, still a neighbor, a daughter, a sister. But I was starting to be me. And I found that once I found out who me was and embraced her, friendships became easier, dealing with conflict became easier, being me became easier. I started really liking who I was. And don't get me wrong, I can still blow a gasket and tell Greg to fuck off when he walks in with the dogs as soon as I rest into Shavasana, which does happen all the time. But I think that's mostly just about marriage or cohabitating, and also the fact that I get walked in on and interrupted all the time. Like when I'm on the phone, working on the computer, making dinner, and of course, most often when going to the bathroom. A handy friend of mine is sending me her recommendations for her adrenal supplements and CBD oil. So thank you, friend. Whatever helps. So I'm ready to continue our story. The beginning years, which were the worst. Elle is a toddler getting services with DDD and private speech therapy. And yay, we finally were informed about developmental pediatricians. So we only counted on the quote unquote regular pediatricians for things like ear infections, strep throat, whatever. So there are certain instances of memories of mine which are crystal clear, which means they usually provoked extreme joy or unhappiness, anger, or frustration. So yeah, our minds filter out the ordinary and hang on to the extremes. I would prefer my mind take bliss in the ordinary. And yeah, yogis, I know, I'm not there. I'm not sure I ever will be, but I hear you and I do want that. Elle is in the public school system, special needs preschool. We kind of got off to a rocky start because the district is known for just sending a letter telling you what school your kid is going to, what time the bus is picking them up and dropping them off. And that's basically it. I had participated in the evaluation, which placed Elle at this particular program, and did get a chance to go visit the classroom before school started, although they didn't offer a typical back-to-school night or meet the teacher. Because, of course, my fear is I put Elle on a bus and teach her it's okay that she just goes wherever they take her and into a strange classroom. Greg's job was more flexible than mine at the time. So yes, on the first day of school, at my rigorous request, he got Elle on the bus, followed it to school, greeted her off the bus, and told her it was okay to go on to her new classroom. That man seriously will do what he needs to buffer my crazy and worry. Because of course, I'm sitting in my office at the world's worst employer and toxic environment worrying about this. By the way, I purposefully do not speak the company name because I don't want to degrade them. But it's the truth. Some places are bad places to work. I know people who are still there. I don't know if they listen to this pod. and maybe the truth kind of like passes them by, maybe it pisses them off, but I have been greatly consoled by those who do listen and who used to work there and saw and experienced the same things I did. On my visit to the preschool, I was really excited. The principal and school psychologist seemed so happy to have Elle there. They showed me around the school and were very proud of their program. That type of enthusiasm is contagious and should be existing in every single special needs environment. It makes us crazy parents calm. Then we walked into the classroom, and that's when the happy feeling ended. There were 3 things that bothered me right off the bat. Hairs were raised on the back of my neck. They weren't awful things, honestly, but back then I was very fragile and emotional, so the littlest thing could and would set me off. First, the teacher they introduced me to looked very tired and worn out. And she wasn't the real teacher, she was a substitute, and they were looking to hire the permanent teacher. Okay, well, she wasn't giving me warm and fuzzies. I mean, who cares if she was the sub? How long would that haggard, long face be there with my bright and shiny daughter each day? Second, they had this weird art section that looked very disturbing. The whole classroom just seemed overall messy and in a disarray, like it might at the end of the school year, not the beginning of the school year. The art area had a wired tray to hold paintings to dry. So that it's shelves of wire with raw pointed ends of wires that stuck out at what I imagine the head and eye level of a young child who with one trip is going to be blind or punctured. I pointed out this death trap and was like, what is that? And they think I'm crazy. They're like, it's just to dry, pictures on. I'm like, okay, can you point the death trap ends towards the wall? So they're not, right there to puncture someone? Because back then, Elle was super stumbly. She would trip and fall for no particular reason. Her balance and coordination was really that bad. She fell all the time. And I was envisioning the call from the school and the ambulance trip to the ER and surgery and stitches from the simple art drying rack. Yes, see, I'm crazy. But I know my daughter. Just asking about it, I could see the mental notes they were making in their heads. Keep an eye on this one, folks. The third thing was the bathroom situation. There wasn't a bathroom in the classroom. I mean, even my son's kindergarten class had a bathroom in it. These kids were expected to use the bathroom down the way. In Arizona, down the way does not mean down a hall, but down the building outside. Why Arizona has outdoor walkways to classrooms and bathrooms is completely beyond me. And she's, expected to use the bathroom with all the other kids. I just did not feel comfortable with that. It's horrible to say because today I so believe in inclusion, but when your kid is 4 and developmentally disabled, you want them to be in a self-contained environment. And even though Elle wasn't potty trained at that time, I did want her to join the bathroom breaks for good modeling. So the next question I asked was, since Elle isn't potty trained, which you guys know, who will change her pull-ups? And where will that happen? Like, I don't just want anyone tending to my daughter's personal business, and I want her privacy to be protected. Fortunately, and obviously, Elle was not the first unpotty trained special needs student. So they had a complete plan with the nurse, and they made me feel good about it. So the third issue was resolved, and I gotta say, 1 out of 3 ain't bad. As I mentioned earlier, my memory tends to focus on the extreme, good or bad. I started writing for this pod because of one clinic note from a neurology department. And now I'm just getting to that. One clinic note, and I'm reminded of what got us to that actual note. I'm so grateful to be reliving these memories and journeys and memorizing them forever. Elle really enjoyed the preschool, which was called Sun Kids. The district eventually hired in the teacher position not too far into the school year, and she was awesome. So awesome. The paraprofessionals were awesome. The therapists were awesome. I profoundly remember Elle's speech therapist during one of our progress report meetings. I must have been lamenting about all my concerns about Elle's future and where she will go. And this lady, with the utmost confidence and a huge smile, told me that I should never discount Elle's potential, that it was vast and huge and would exceed my wildest expectations. At the time, I appreciated the comment, filed it off into the mental folder of all the things that I thought would never happen with Elle. And yes, Julie, you were right. Elle's potential is vast and huge, and she has exceeded my wildest expectations. Not like others who might be more academically inclined or who've learned to read and write, but Elle is an expert at succeeding in life. As a human being, as a free spirit, as a kind person and lover of all living things. She actually loves non-living things too. So yeah, Elle kicks ass. So thank you, Julie. Thank you for believing in Elle. And what is also amazing is that Elle's occupational therapist at Sun Kids was actually her OT last year in high school. It makes my heart swell and my throat ache to meet people who knew Elle a long time ago and can see where she is today and know they had a part of it. But then I get a call from the school. The teacher and aides were very concerned about some staring spells Elle was having. They said that she would completely disengage in a circle or activity and just stare off into space. They had a hard time getting her attention with waving their hands in front of her face or snapping their fingers in front of her gaze. And the ultimate concern was that she was having seizures. I'm like, seizures? That can't be. I mean, in my mind, that's when a person convulses and foams at the mouth. The staff said that there are seizures called absence seizures, not as physically obvious, but possibly neurologically detrimental to the brain. Great. I mean, we had seen her stare off at home a little bit, not often, but it just sort of seemed like she was logically enjoying something she appreciated looking at. So I take Elle to Phoenix Children's Hospital to meet with a neurologist. Of course, this is after asking around tons of people like what type of doctor I take her to, because I don't freaking know what type of specialist handles seizures. But we lucked out because the neurologist was awesome. He did an exam, and even though he didn't think the descriptions of the episodes indicated seizures, yay, he still wanted to conduct an EEG, which stands for electroencephalogram Gesundheit. I hope I didn't massacre that. So we'll just call it EEG. And the EEG will read Elle's brain to see if there is any evidence of a seizure. So the EEG has to be conducted while Elle is asleep, which means we check into the hospital for an evening and they hook her up with all of these wires on her and expect her to sleep. I snuggle with her on this, crappy hospital bed to try to get her to rest and settle down amongst all these contraptions and wires. I'm pretty doubtful that this is going to work at all. Elle's a great sleeper. When it's bedtime, she is ready, goes down, and that is it for 11 hours or more, even still to this day. And of course, I have to take the next day off work because I know I'm not going to get any sleep watching her and mentally willing her to sleep. Elle fidgets and fusses, even with the items from home that I brought her, like her blanket and her Ninis. Her Ninis are her affectionately named burp cloths. She does not settle in. It's like she knows she's on stage and she wants to perform, not to sleep. It's a long night. Every now and then, someone comes in to check in on the wires, and that just stirs Elle up because now she's got an audience. I would have killed for a glass of wine as I lay there spooning with her all night, hoping that my body pressed up against hers would give her comfort and that she would wear down. When she did fall asleep, it was more like dozing. She was just too hyper aware of her surroundings. It was too different. It was interesting. I never slept myself that night. I was obsessed with watching her face, her eyes, her chest rising up and down with her breaths, and wishing, sleep, sleep, sleep. Let's get some answers. Please sleep. When the medical assistant finally and mercifully came in to unhook Elle and say that we were done, her intentions were pure, but she smiled at me and she said that she really believed we would get some answers. Like she knew already. And so my heart soared. Would we have answers? I never have answers. Well, she spoke out of place because she wasn't qualified to be able to say any of that. So, I don't know if it was a couple days or a week later, but I met with the neurologist, and he wasn't as adamant as this medical assistant was. He was actually quite more vague, but in a very bedside manner sort of way. He acknowledged that it would have been better if Elle had been in a deep sleep state, but at the end of the day, he felt like the results did not indicate any epileptic indications. So there we go. No answers, a sleepless night, a day off work, and a school staff that still thinks Elle has absence seizures and are judging me for her not receiving any treatments. So that was me in between a rock and a hard place in 2008. Skip ahead 8 months later, and the school staff are still worried about Elle and if she's having absence seizures. I called to get another appointment with our neurologist, only to find that he's moved hospitals. He was a wonderful man who had a good reputation, and he left Phoenix Children's to go to a county hospital, which usually serves the underserved. That is a compassionate man who cares about practicing medicine and ensuring all people from all demographics and socioeconomic status receive equal medical care. We weren't going to follow him. I mean, our insurance covered Phoenix Children's, and we already had so many medical professionals that we saw there. I just wanted to keep all of our files and records in one place. And yeah, the location of the county hospital was less than desirable. And frankly, I'd rather be with Elle in a waiting room that's filled with happy paint and sunshine graphics everywhere. So the hospital assigns us to another doctor. On our first visit with him, we mostly just kind of updated what was going on. He was very unemotional. I get it. Many doctors may not want to show emotion, but he was very arrogant. My husband will be the first to endorse the fact that I sort of have an intuition about people. I can meet someone and in an instant know if they are a good fit or if they are who they present themselves to be. It's happened on multiple occasions where I've read words or body language of people who have fooled others and then been found to be exactly the opposite. And it's not that I'm not trusting or judgmental, but sometimes I'm spot on. It's not with everyone, so don't worry if you cross me on the street or meet me. It's usually about someone who could possibly spend a lot of time with me or someone in my family, and that's when this amazing radar kicks in. So yeah, I don't like this guy. I don't like him at all. I could just tell from his demeanor and expression that he thought I was just a stupid mother. A stupid, uneducated, frantic mother. If I had walked in wearing one of my business suits, I think he would have actually given me more credit, but I was wearing sloppy mom clothes, and I could see from his exasperated expression when I pushed him for more answers. He didn't like me either. That was our first meeting. Pretty unproductive. He gave me some material to read that I didn't. He suggested a follow-up appointment, which I dutifully scheduled and attended. And it went downhill from there. He was not pleased to see me, even more so that I had not read his valuable material. I told him I frankly did not agree with his assessment, that I wanted my original doctor back that had done the evaluations and read the EEG, and that he couldn't know my daughter from simply reading her file, that her chromosome abnormality was extremely rare, and that she could not be evaluated or tested the same way someone might with normal DNA, but with epileptic disorders. So, oh, wow, now I have really pissed him off. His professional opinion was that she might be having seizures because of some of the behaviors she possessed. I'm like, you haven't seen her behaviors. You are going off a written record. Yeah, she's here with me in your exam room tearing it apart because there's no toys in a freaking children's hospital. And you are looking at me with disdain and discomfort because she's making a mess. Like, what do you expect? His recommendation, continued observation. I'm like, here? Or in her natural environment at school or home? No, he meant here at the hospital. I'm like, great. It's impossible to replicate a daily life in a foreign environment. He also suggested an EEG study that would last somewhere between 24 to 48 hours. Yes, Elle hooked up all over again with all these wires for 24 to 48 hours. I'm starting to boil and my crazy is heating up. I asked him what I thought was calmly. I'm sure I had a little tiny bit of sarcasm. So is this room like a hotel suite? With a TV, things to do? Are we allowed to go outside? Kind of switch it up a little bit? Because I don't know, honestly, how I can keep her hostage in a room for a day or two so that you can capture results. I mean, she might not sleep at all. He had a long pause. I could see it in his face, him thinking, you stupid bitch, shut up. I am the doctor. You're just a mom. Do what I recommend or I can't help you. And then he brings up medication. So my crazy is rearing. For what? She hasn't even been diagnosed with anything yet. You want me to medicate her? I mean, thank you for the handout about this medicine. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Depakote? I can tell he's the type of doctor that prides himself on seeing as many patients during the day, and he wants our appointment to end so he can move on to the next statistic. But he still makes time to shame me for not reading the material he gave me on the last visit, and that I really should consider sleep depriving Elle before the next EEG. I mean, really, like I didn't the first time, motherfucker. Oh, and he makes a point of handing me the epilepsy resources material to me, emphasizing, I'm giving this to you again. Okay, dude, all the tests have been inconclusive, and why should I research a treatment for something that she hasn't been diagnosed with? So I'm done. My mind is saying, you aren't helping me, you aren't helping my daughter, you don't care, and you're the type of egotistical motherfucker that makes all doctors look bad. My mouth is saying, okay, well, I don't agree, and the 24 to 48 hour EEG isn't realistic, and I'm not going to medicate my daughter without a diagnosis. And I don't feel like reading material until I know it's relevant. These are just pamphlets that you have on hand, probably from your pharmaceutical companies. So I'm feeling pretty good about, somewhat being human and disagreeing and packing myself and Elle up and not committing to something that in my gut sounds very, very wrong. And he manages to make it worse. He said, I understand, Mrs. Bainham, that moms like you have a hard time understanding how to treat retarded kids, but you have to listen to the intervention. Well, Dr. A-hole, I wish your license could get revoked from being a human being because you just hit that trifecta of fuck-ups. You just called my daughter retarded. People don't do that anymore, least of all should the medical profession. I constantly have to educate and correct people all the time about what that word means and how awful it is when it's used as slang. And then you referred to me as, quote, moms like you, unquote. What is a mom like me? One who fervently loves their kid and wants them to get the appropriate treatment and care? one who loves and worries and sacrifices their own lifestyle, sleep, body care, career, and relationships to take care of them, one who challenges you because you aren't the end-all be-all of medicine despite that you have a medical degree that might not have told you what experience could. And don't ever call me Mrs. Bainham. So I am crazy. I'm crazy inside. I just walked out with his stupid pamphlet vowing not to succumb to his low level. I could do all sorts of things. File a complaint with the medical board, complain to the hospital. If social media had been big then, I could have smeared him all over. But I didn't. I don't need to waste my time and energy on some worthless doctor because it's all about Elle. And oh yay, I took time off for that glorious visit from work, which further ingratiates me to my inconsiderate employer. Later, I bravely shared this experience about this particular neurologist with Elle's feeding and speech therapist. Her husband was in the medical field, and he knew about this neurologist. I don't know why I can't say that word today. From people who either went to medical school with him or did residencies, and it was all bad. No one liked him. His ego was more important than his Hippocratic oath. That gave me a lot of comfort because at least I knew my intuition radar was right. I wasn't that crazy mom like you. I mean, maybe just a little. But I'm pissed. The way I feel like I've been treated by this doctor who disregards my input about the child I live with is just messed up. He can't clinically treat Elle over just 2 30-minute office visits, and he didn't even try. It's just easier to hand over these pamphlets and prescribe EEGs that other people spend time in conducting, and he just gets to read the results and claim all the credit. But I still don't have answers. So I cry in my developmental pediatrician's office, and she recommends another neurologist at Phoenix Children's that she thinks would do a very good job evaluating Elle. Yes, sometimes you need to cry to invoke in other people that they need to help you. So I called the hospital to say that I wanted to change doctors within the group and switch to this other neurologist. And I added, this is a referral from my developmental pediatrician. It's a referral. I honestly could not believe what happened next. They refused. They absolutely refused. They said that there were too many instances of parents switching or quote unquote shopping doctors to find one that told them what they wanted to hear and that they would not allow it. That the current doctor's assessment within the group would stand and could not be challenged by anyone else in the practice. Doesn't that imply then what one doctor says in a practice, right or wrong, that everyone else has to chime in and agree with that, like they're in a mob or a cult? I politely explained, because I have realized being polite with the office staff is always wise. Their jobs must suck because their physicians are assholes, and I'm sure all the parents are rude and crazy, and all the kids have behavior issues, all over the place. It's a zoo. I explained that I knew that their hospital served a lot of people throughout the community from all walks of life, but that I hoped that my husband's platinum insurance plan that pretty much paid for everything could warrant me the right to choose my daughter's physician. I know that sounded stuck up, but in my mind, we had really good pain insurance, so I thought it was important to bring it up. And, that went over like a lead balloon. I mean, these are schedulers, not billing staff, and the money's not going in their pocket. So I, of course, asked, well, we live in the United States of America. Don't I have the right to choose my daughter's doctor? Well, the answer was, well, moms like you tend to shop doctors, and we know you don't prefer Dr. So-and-so, so now I know, my file has been flagged with the acronym MLY. I mean, word's gotten around from the doctor lounge to the staff lounge. I'm screwed. But congratulations to me. I am now an MLY, a mom like you. Everywhere, I'm notorious, and no doctor will want to work with me. Another desperate call to my developmental pediatrician for her, number 2 in line, and now we're at St. Joseph's Hospital. and in their neurology department. So boop-a-doop-boop-boo. This guy is amazing. He listens and he actually examines Elle. He reads all the reports and he just sort of like shakes his head at the pamphlets that I was plied with. He looks me in the eye, he looks Elle in the eye, and he smiles at both of us at the same time. He said, I want to order a test, not as strenuous as the EEG that you do during sleep, but let's just get an index of her brain activity. Okay, I admit, I can't find my paperwork on this or what it is, and I could be remembering this all wrong. But we did the nice doctor equivalent test, and he looked at me unequivocally and said, no, Elle does not suffer from seizures. Her brain has not been affected from seizures. We can continue to monitor her regularly if you think it's necessary. But honestly, if there aren't any incidents, you don't have to keep coming back because you think it's your duty to do so. Well, okay then. And since that day, no teacher or staff has ever noticed Elle having an absence moment. So wow, this turned out way longer than I thought it would be. A little more swearing and explicit than I usually am, but I felt like some words just can't be replaced, and my mind was thinking them, so I might as well verbalize them on the pod too. This was 11 years ago. It's hard to imagine me squeezing all of this in while trying to be a mom to Jack, wife to Greg, CEO of my household, an employee, and not always available to be a friend. Not long after all of this, Phoenix Children's Hospital merged certain departments in the pediatric division with St. Joseph's Hospital, and one of them was the neurology department. So now I can go see the doctor I want to at Phoenix Children's Hospital. So snap, take that. So whoop to you all out there, especially to moms like you and dads like you, grandparents like you, siblings like you, anyone else like you. These kids like that you are like you. Thanks for listening. This is Jen.